We do not endorse anything that can be constructed as ableist or gendered language within the discourse of our voice. The authors have made a conscious attempt to remove any language predicate off that privilege. My process of being as ended, my process of becoming as stuck begun. Contention was a resolution. Korean immigration had become a secret in Mexico. Yale the Banales tells us her story of how they suffer as foreigners and as Haskandis in foreign countries. As civilians in outside. It is part of Mexican history, which has been kept a secret. Hundreds of Koreans are forced to live in Haskandis. They couldn't ever remain sacrificed and be forced to pay. Really, hated Banales, records tell them it was difficult. It was hard labor. They paid for the Utah's records to live in something in a foreign country. Though to refuse to work for being. What's your last name? They would eat. These are the same social last name. So we all change the name. Now these slaves represent the myth of the Mama. Do they eat and king? Korean immigrants were recognized as the best worker, excluded treating like Bruce Lee today. That's cheap 2005. They call us the country. 193 Koreans. Not only was he the beautiful master of original country. I've done the first Korean immigrants collaborating in the cast as Japanese slaves and Scottish shows as Koreans to work in sugar plantation. They're sold as slaves to cast potatoes and fashion. They live lives worse than those original, but the diligent of reputation as best workers. Someone said they were given it and now this myth of the Mama and props up anti-white in civil society. The right uses it to say that the poverty of Latinos and African Americans must be explained by their own values. Asian Americans vindicate this so-called American dream. They are the living proof of the free market and the act of racial discrimination. But this is bad because the plight of the refugee gets lost in Africa, Southeast Asia, London, and Caribbean. Without embracing the silent policing of yellow bodies, the right cause every force and using the myth of the non-binary as ammunition. That's their popular. In 2002, the non-binary myth has persisted in large part because political conservative passion. Asian Americans become the dogs of right. This non-binary myth depicts Asian Americans tells the racial story about society working. The flip side is also appealing to right because Asian Americans said from their strong finance and their dedication to education, hard work. Conservatives and popular African Americans framed by their own values. The non-binary myth racist love to pull that a central point of U.S. history after the 1961 Wall Rice and the immigrants report of that year with selecting allows water vessel and educated immigrants into the United States. How this gives Southeast Asian nurses, Dr. Engineer began pouring into the United States just racial country for but shortly after Article 20 as Cameron's being was 100 billion people spent public minorities. The nation's 300,000 Chinese Americans moving over with no help from anyone else. Usually 1970 has Asian Americans outlying lives and unfortunately 1980 dubbed as a super minority. Asian Americans are living proof of the power of the free market after racial discrimination. A closer look into another picture. What most radically today is the fact that the combination of Asian Americans made up of highly educated Asian Americans. The plight of the refugees from Capitalism being not is lost in the average disadvantage to represent them in the lives of the United States. Poverty among Southeast Asian Americans much higher than those even non-minority. Yet despite these clips and actions made by belonging to parliamentary, the federal government still groups Southeast Asian reference under the overbroad categorization for research and funding purposes. We've laid on this child with this for long. People know this opportunity and contribution to our community. Now these Southeast Asians have become a collateral damage in white supremacist efforts critical homogenous black culture poverty that is taking to that more than any other racial ethnic group. Southeast Asian defines that percent of immigrant culture. Southeast Asian wants local wealth, but share 80% of their most honorable something and the overall and the youth divide the list family of the demanding society. Yet these countries attribute as weird aberration. Writings of cast they said are very exceptional circumstances. The theories are exceptional to consolidate homogenous black culture poverty. Southeast Asian poverty can be done as collateral damage. Most good workers, black refugees, Southeast Asian refugees have to become agricultural poverty. One conservative unintended. Now our performance is in competition with this minority. Yes, some Asian Americans are hardworking others, but the reason the myth is perpetuated is because Asian Americans broad society believe in it. Our performance is a way of telling traditional though should the minorities to go away. This exposure has three impacts. One is that the oppression of Asian Americans continues. Two is that the Asian body is used to justify oppression of the minorities. Now three that Asians are viewed as privileged by other minorities. But the reality that's not true. That China 93, this history of displays of black material of minority. Asian Americans are hardworking telling existential belief in the minority allows us to ignore it just by go in intersectionality based on Asian American. The portrayal of President Jeremy probably ignore the needs. You'll find important range around Asian minority pulling itself from hardship to become a lost self-respect for this online things become largely unpleasant subject of current social media. One can see the labor and school oppression, which one denies the existence of oppression and discrimination against Asian Americans. Two denies the oppression of other racial minorities. The myth has gained a substantial following inside outside the Asian American community. The myth has created audience unsympathetic and proud Asian Americans. They can even smart with them, friendly values, reactionary religion, plus also Asian American right. Once they believe that she was offended by the military, surely somebody to outright been justice not aware of have they been federal failure expressive feelings. My side is they were not defended by any of the black American, Chicano, or Native American. They understood the aim faced by black China. They emphasized the Native American, but the Asian Americans made the aim because I didn't know that Asian Americans felt oppressed. The modern race around the oppressed Asian Americans is individual. To be emphasized to people without social service, taking Asian Americans to the failed official deny funding for social service program. College ministry has excluded Asian Americans from education operating programs. Japanese American men earn income compared to those white men. They only did so by acquiring education. The income is rated from other Asian American groups of more blamed. Asian American families, more workers, perhaps more Asian American women without the word because of male leverage. The family at such low wages. Wages vary from parents, geographical locations there. The myth or to dual harm by putting other racial Asian minorities, poor whites are blamed for not being successful. African Americans, teens are poor whites are told, look at those Asians, anyone can make it in the country. This is blamed just by the meritocracy thesis proved by Asian Americans. We have the pleasure of oppression of other racial minorities. This blatant creates resentment against Asian Americans, all African Americans, Latinos, and poor whites. The bottom line is that the communities gave us queer Americans to Los Angeles, discovered the rights. Many queer Americans now view themselves as king of shield, complimenting the white person, Anglo black minorities. The bottom line is that South racial minorities did not take pressure Asian Americans. This gave that notice a process of conscientization to expose the myth of the black minority that's been used as a justification for the position of the black minority, therefore establishing black culture property. Contention to reason our method of conscientization. We often competitively participate in debate without ever considering the possibility of debate can change the world. How the critical thinking and the research skills we develop through our meeting and advanced methodologies to liberate oppressed groups, often within our social location. Our speech our focus on the epistemological of criminal activity and the development of a critical consciousness. Debate becomes more than just a game or a process of life leading to conscientization. That's also mentioned outside of the fact that Asian Americans, white very class, people got political active matter, finding ways to get to speech real policy, young people who are critical conscious and critically active. They're active on this question, no one, given that political message, the right, and folks are student actors are strong to after these Asian American communists brain become fully involved. They realize the politics of conversion, where the tendency of nihilism is counterline chance for people that there is hope for the future. Common factor contribute to the development of an Asian American critical conscience. Now, U.S. economic engagement, while we choose to discuss economic engagement policy, neglects the presence of the Asian identity. Our critical examination of this year's policy question raises our consciousness of how we Asian citizens perceive the world. That can create real change. That is also in 2007. Conscientization, being able to manufacture awareness, understanding how social and social pressure applies. The process of conscientization involves a constant clarification of what we're within us while we move about in the world. The approach to this world has been able to work out in the making. Such readiness often inspires people working in this passion. Given the academic transport, they were also important steps actually taking it. Now, every round is key to round over Asian American critical conscience. That's also too much outside of Asian American key to round Asian American critical conscience. They the work of social change. Train learning activity, combined personal, and not the learning out of the life moves students to the Asian American critical conscience. And our performance is critical because the various critical elements that contribute to conscientization that must be embraced for effective change. Also, too much outside of critical elements contribute to conscientization. Important obtaining information, examples, both talking on the side of life to take by sort of forces. There's an important role in education, key social making difference. School is not talking about the race of the Asian American experience. Inspired by the experience of other Asian Americans who struggle to overcome conditions, committed to Asian American or TV when they transfer understanding into action, research, extend knowledge, and deliver information. Finally, conscientization occurs when these discrete elements work in combination. It was not a purely intellectual experience, that's a social element. Instead, multifaceted, interrelated experiences reinforce each other. For actions to raise critical conscious Asian Americans, that's something called the common foundation that people will see to know in relation to the world. There's a value that these offer range experience constantly. Breaking them by resources often pay active programs against student life activities. Conscientization arises when people are exposed and combine lessons learned from a variety of sources. And we say we should have a discussion about the topic, one that allows us to examine the history of the combination of made and unmade, one that invites us as active and critical examination of the world and increasing concerns of race and equality and plurality of identities. This allows us for examining discussion, study, and learning. That's taught equal to by knowing history is a several from these outside content practice and various transformations of order and history by reproducing, medicating, exclusion, excluding, such free, question of how I history celebrates the U.S. nation. The world like United States, both the world is frequently raised on question. It's students' reflection of the past and nostalgia, including started ways the nation calls for examining history towards the nation remaining unmade. Understanding how the history of the nation serves as ideological outline. Arms us as part of increasing concern of racism and history do not know unified knowledge. Only consensus of the multi-layer all the contributing forces and intermingle with partial history that are presenting unified. This presents an opportunity for genuine productive study, discussion, and learning.
So, how exactly is conscientization economic in nature?
Conscientization, we say our examination of the Mexico immigration that's happened in the past is economic engagement.
Okay, so how so?
How so?
How is economic in nature?
So we have a couple arguments there. First is that the shopping movement called cake bread says that the United States federal government is actually us because we're the ones to determine how it works and how these discourses are how the federal government and the thing that the federal government done, how it operates within a current society. We also will make an argument of how analyzing immigration policy, like immigration that happened in North Korea, is an example of economic engagement. And also we have a metaphor for
engagement with Mexico.
Korean economic engagement with Mexico? No. Confused. Slave trader was a United States person, took Korean slaves to Mexico.
So it's about Koreans from the United States immigrating to Mexico.
No, it's about someone from the United States taking Korean slaves to Mexico. But that's not the main argument here. Our main argument is a metaphor for engagement. This is a topic about engagement. So we have decided to engage. Yes. Instead of being exclusionary, we decide to engage Asian conscientization, engage different methodologies, different ways of debate, non-traditional forms of debate, and this is all an argument for why engaging is good. Because conscientization also to my experiences, and we need these interrelated experiences within these types of academic forums to engage and learn and raise critical consciousness.
All right, that's fine. So let's talk about specifically like the first few parts that you're reading in the 1AC, they're all in the context of why like the model minority myth is perpetuated. I'm confused as to how, you read a bunch of cards as to how like, Asian Americans are unable to engage in activism. Yet your evidence speaks to the fact that there are some Asian Americans who are gaining this like route to activism now. And then it says
the second part's right. The second part's right. There are some Asian Americans that are gaining activism.
Yeah.
The reason for that activism is conscientization, which is why our method is good.
okay, wait, so how else are they engaging in this conscientization?
That's their business. We engage in formal conscientization through this paper.
What do you mean? I'm asking like, if Asian Americans are already engaging in conscientization, then
That's-
why is your
that's-
act in the 1AC critical or intrinsic
Because
to
our
its success?
performance is unique. We're a performance of breaking down the model minority. Previous traditional team saying, no, we're not
Regardless
going
of
to
the
debate
debate
like the
space,
model
right?
minorities. What?
Regardless of debate space, you have said that Asian Americans can engage in this type of activism in other forums. Why is the debate space critical?
Conscientization is you could think that the conjunction endorsing process of conscientization.
And also,
is a
we have
concept of
specific,
education.
we have specific reasons why this form is key. It's an academic form where interrelated social experiences like the Osage Club talks about. And that is just one study. Not all Asians are going through this process of conscientization. In fact, most believe in this model minority myth that we're saying perpetuates
Let's talk
psychological violence and
history for a sec.
anti-blackness in society.
But let's talk history for a sec. So the thesis of your argument is that like Americans would take.
It's gonna be 3 off.
Yep.
Yeah.
Everyone good to go?
First off, framework of interpretation. Debate is a game where the resolution increases states appoints the affirmative must defend how the United States federal government should increase the economic engagement in violation of the affirmative does not advocate the resolution is otherwise loss of education in violation of economic engagement is limited to expanding economic ties. Self-development economic engagement differ from the tools the economic relation to the correct mutual dependence policy delivery expanding economic ties are information best a limits to topic of discussion that provides for classes key to decision making absence still the tiebreaker for the away. Debates means of settling interests that must be conflict of interest if everyone's in agreement. There is a need for debate that matter to be settled by unanimous consent where there's no philosophy to debate. Debate cannot be effective decision without clear identification of the question or question to be answered. Participation in the debate if not likely to be productive without the focus on particular question. The marketing sense of the controversy being introduced results in unfocused deliberation for the decision without the focus for the discussion. They could easily agree about as far as they education without finding points of clarity or particular solution to have a productive debate which facilitates effective decision making by like zones. This is the basis for argument should be clearly defined resolved that the minutes minor this order is debatable yet it fails to provide much basis for clear argumentation. Although we have a general subject, it is still too broad that the state debate could be completely void of interpretation or debate cannot occur over competing towards the controversy. Limits and ground or entire negative strategy based on the shared question of the resolution there or infinite numbers of reasons that the scholarship of their advocacy could be a reason to vote for these all obviate the only predictable strategies based on topical action they overstretch a research burden and undermine preparedness for all bases of God's class C's, which I debate and increases tolerance to condemn dogmatism by arguing that perspectives contrary to what one believes also solves their office because they can talk about their literature and the negative executing critical thinking that's arrogant away. The greatest benefits of switching sides is critical thinking, and learn through debate to decisions how to decide critical thinking is necessary and sets all possible outcomes and reference of vital decisions in the absence of debate, critical thinking and ignorant but ambitious politicians and persuasive leaders would be much more likely to draw the world into conflicts with the capital loss in terms of human well-being. Being debating about both sides teaches considerable flexibility, debating that public policy care under complexity, and these policy-making education debates about government policy opposites to decision makers is relevant whether we actually become policymakers as Asbury taking 12. Cover simulation provides lessons for students and education simulation participation when the importance of understanding form Understanding foreign perspective and necessity compromise that exercise force students challenge their assumptions about how other governments behave and how their own government works. Education literature is dependent on other relations from encouraging engagement, breaking down relational lecture form, improving communication skills, and relating to understand about as students link fact theory or real playing exercise. They encourage students to learn more political fact what they learn. The more active assimilation teaching how they contextualize and act on their own information and decision making solves all global existential problems. Number 10. The democratic capacity built fundamental on critical thinking, informed decision-making, public judgment, and political let the university do the specimen view of the bureaucratic politics that is a puzzling solution to war, and giving up the literacy capacity to which is the hybrid application debate bills, built issues about the decision impact and the merits of debate bill, information literacy, the place of critical world problem solving skill, domain with increasing rich community information, environmental modernity, the better, more strong support for the debate outside enhancing democratic deliberative capacities and on-conventional creating self-critical students. The more that engage in the process, the more democracy is to thrive. The democracy faces challenges including class gender, and racial justice, environmental destruction, economy, and interracial great power, calling more than specific process industry that the limited greater skill provides the best of responsible effective democratic governance by the system dealing with the external challenges. And debate is a game. There's intrinsic value of playing a game that's happened over two concepts of political principles of fairness, no dominion of the problem, continuous significance, any victory, the demands enable the defeating any capable of competitive rights of being meaningless. Should I also want to be able to adversary, they should have the opportunity to invest and succeed in any competition to give honor to the winner of the fair vote, such logic and competition they contain form motivation and look for helping people go and participate democratic respect is advancing solutions and the negative policy constructed with competitive fairness and robust consent of legal racism digital unless you convert upon citizens or others to say viable political rights and to be the act and so nature legal loops out of legal conduct we can even defend possible race such as the evidence of the for fair competition and the next office the capitalism critique focus on one particularly identity group creates divisions that feed into the capitalism as a Tennessee 2K link capitalism searches have also identified relations with global local institution is in the ancient global capitalism celebrating enhance awareness of local community support identification and with the mix of the exploitation of these celebration of the local self-defined space of affirmation cultural identity playing the lane capitalism are opportunistic use of localizing the content ethnic content need your part postmodern justice the ethnic cultural narratives and so words and counter support and inform that dealing teams requirements of the larger public that they are part of they promote the global making destruction of capitalism business such local publicly graceful saying and the limited political so that race opposition is used by capitalism to ideologically justify economic exploitation the eradication of racism martial totalizing critique of the capitalism that the other no sex race oppression delicately and the race operates economic base different producing culture and what affects the racing goes to the rebellion contemporary capitalist relation and have you race the local problems for reform especially the when people are by the people linking the existing socio-economic arrangement can with the capitalistic creation the race oppression also requires public part of the political part of the experience in existing capitalist system which produces different company ideological difference that justify that global social inequality for my project articulates a theory that reflects our relationship platform in the interest of contributing toward the post-race society extracted from actual that existing capitalist and socialist creates the condition of possibility for post-race society contemporarily against race and determining connection to economics included and redirection away from the Western capitalist exploitation point necessarily question the cultural questions of difference the discrimination of exploitation requires the transformation of capitalism in Asian American studies perpetuate capitalism the permutation specifically fails that the one and global capitalist practices that exploits the personal theoretical and the Asian American study Asian American can be validated and the local players like ultimately the value difference in singularity they ignore historical specificities endorsed and individual norms and performative discourse that under the framework of against what these things that return the motor guide curriculum that takes into account this local capitalism negotiating collective agencies necessary to destroy radicals ideological precedent and it's just that maintaining exploiting capitalism and second white supremacy was involved with subordinate the capitalism that's cosmic and production theoretic and analogous finance root cause of the capitalism continually descending the partial American side of the capitalism non-aggressive will metastasize throughout the given side slowly eroding its almost community peace with principles of the treat members like that can be the capitalism drive forward that makes it also appealing youth friendly to the neighborhoods especially those of color especially and by the American Jewish nothing more than the American money capitalism the color way masculine really and what it really does life body the shadows of women's capitalism racism the way it's prince or complex with all the back up during the process of owning slaves the reason they came with it would not that offline before the capitalism investing that money beneficiary never miss enough for the convince the best of half almost good they are supposed to be real to think we're divided by people when the real force is by student activists and all defend bullshit on anything history of copies history theft land use of your work for people who knew how to provide for them the different pride life who was killed companies brought over by labor days and death the American kidnapped African slaves land is divided by the summerly elite slavery cars leading about 3 decades of share property change no one's liberty to where's the use of the average somewhere in the bank economic has possibly on your company can't make more low bounds in the short term, drive for profit, instead of a capitalism for rational decision making. This is the only avenue to extinction. As Marco, the equal right, which in north south only can be traced to a single source of actual nature, capitalism institutions, and the rational consequence of system role, US are ready to execute and constructing against any target, the information overlies the hardship policy, and the global students are superiority use of threat our states, so the party black has all this with capitalism considered taking half the total of the space historian, the forces of all over the national issue, military act, economic to be or witness the introversion, the transcendental nuclear space following the command of the US nuclear link between the nuclear strength and the political compensation between nuclear actions, ultimate character US policy which conservative men have been aiming to more compensation the interests of the devastated land, and the master city council be opposed to supporting market supporting, and historical materials critique the capital better than Native American studies, wanton, European clear people with every long chain, they have come to the market transition, American layers of the user made islands and capitalism relates to back to the culture.
Are you good?
Yeah, I'll mark that last part.
Alright, Aaron, what's the role of the ballot?
For framework,
No, for the one and two performance.
we think A, framework is a prior question, so we think that if you think that you like present a better form of debate, we like talk about which is a better way to solve for the impacts of the ground. If we resolve framework, then we think capitalism is a better way to resolve A, not only like the Asian American impacts and the impacts we want to see, but we also
Cool.
have these.
I got some questions on framework. Your switch side argument is based upon the fact that we need to argue perspective contrary to what we believe. Am I correct?
That's one impact that you're already correct.
Yes. So, have you ever taken the position that not defending the resolution was good on the affirmative?
On the affirmative,
I have,
You have.
just a thought. You ended a comment out at camp, it was pretty cool, but.
You did? So if you're allowed to break the rules when you want, why?
Yeah, one round, I did it outside of the debate space, and so I could understand how to go for an argument that it is a good idea to not defend affirmative like that.
Okay, so why is that a reason that our study should be included?
What? We're not saying your study should be excluded from debate. Our argument is just that it's not fair to not take the resolutions as Stacy's point for all of our like.
Your hate temp card quotes, democratic respect demands inclusion. How is your interpretation inclusive of our education?
I think the thesis of the argument is that the way to engage in the affirmative that is not per the resolution or this like non-traditional affirmative is exclusive to the negative having a point of clash with the affirmative and having a ground. All of our fairness claims are predicated on our ability to engage in the affirmative, which is
So as long as we have
predicated
a point of clash, that's good.
No, it's not a question of a point of clash, it's a question of like what your interpretation justifies as per
What are advocacy
the
skills?
affirmatives.
What are advocacy skills?
Advocacy skills?
Yeah.
Your 1AC introduces a lot of points as to why what activism would look like. We think that advocacy skills are a way to engage in an argumentative like discussion of something.
All right, what's the status of the KL?
if we don't go for framework.
Yes.
Like, if the framework's a prior question.
The framework's a prior question.
Yeah,
So
so we should
is
decide
the-
whether or not, like,
will the
the-
K be in the 2NR? Is it conditional or not?
Came into an R.
Yes, because
Sorry, question of conditionality.
I don't understand, like, framework is a gateway issue, we don't go for framework.
is the federal government capitalist?
We think like the way that you focus on like just a single identity term is capitalist.
A
And yeah, we
single
should probably-
identity. So nothing else is capitalist, just the way we focus on a single
Well, that's
identity.
what our Hennessy process. I also would agree that the U.S. use for capitalist.
Okay, so why do we have to defend an unethical capitalist institution?
Well, our case is not just based off like just like the U.S. using unethical capitalism for or like that's
Yeah, no, that's just linked to your contradicting your own ethics.
It's in the context of the way like
Fine.
race
This is
studies
really
is in
okay.
capitalism.
This is really important. That I'll take a little bit of time for this. But your one card says that mainstream Asian American critics continue to validate neoliberal pluralism. What is neoliberal pluralism?
Where is it? Our one
Your link.
This is the first or second one.
First one. What is neoliberal pluralism?
Honestly, I just don't see. Oh, here we go. Mainstream Asian American critics continue to validate neoliberal.
Okay, you don't have to quote the line. What is it?
Neoliberal pluralism.
Yes.
Honestly, I
Yes, you
don't
know.
necessarily deal with religion with it. Beginning, we
That's gonna be a big part of what we
capitalism crisis exposed to rival theory and other kinds of Asian race.
How many?
30 seconds.
I guess we're speaking from there now.
Yeah, you sent the Dropbox.
Yeah, it is. Order is going to be case
capitalism.
Framework.
Capitalism framework.
Is anyone not ready? Coming out of the 1MC, they do not have a dissentatory methodology, which is a process of conscientization, a constant clarification of who we are, and naming our way, and taking a step to actively change this world. In this debate, they have read capitalism critique. However, there is no alternative, no methodology to be able to break down the system of capitalism. Conscientization is able to solve for it. Also, the conscientization is the only methodology specifying all frameworks, so that you have to develop operate in two impacts. The first is the psychological violence of Asian oppression. It's always swept under the rug, always seen as info, always seen as inferior because it's not the black culture of poverty. And this comes into things like high poverty rates, someone Southeast Asia, exclusion from welfare, educational health. The second impact is the myths of the minority perpetuating oppression against all the minorities, where they are seen as inferior to Asian Americans, and they are blamed for their own oppression because they see that not as hardworking as these Asian Americans perpetuates oppression such as capitalism and just perpetuates a neoliberal structure. The ones capitalism critique right now first is that they do not have an alternative or a system to break down for capitalism. Conscientization is our epistemic and our practical approach against capitalism. It's a way to break down capitalism because it's a constant verification. We change the face of capitalism. There's a return to not like white skin, blue eyed Anglo-Saxon capitalism has been taken over. This is being in 2009. The financial crisis has been recruited by white skin people with blue-eyed skin people with blue eyed on their responsible for the current cards and the blue eyed people for the sadly the world with financial system have built a tendency to cartel on finance being Anglo-Saxon capitalism to reduce a little global capitalism and change story evolution, knowledge of human efforts, not everybody shows the benefit or environment, social cost for rapid focus of liberal capitalism and risky unequal destabilizing the world over time. The constant embrace of the world power person, these nations, so lost break of property, will develop explosive technology, industry, data, more power, respond to society, workers of no prosperity, because good time, also pay higher person, way, the government, global crisis, from the blue system, blue, permutation, endorsing critical examination of capitalism through the process of conscientization, the permutation of option for coalitions, it's West and 88, it should be a fair that brings practice, it's still black and yellow, red people, after the US, and Martin comes up to embrace it, protect the US, social side of this movement, anti-racist activity, black suspicion, white dominant political movement, what the difference between the daily race, people of color, even more difficult to find their race, only best active movement can be and their anti-race to the struggle to conflict, anti-race struggle to have going here, pulling the system of democratic socialism, events of race political board, central line out the alternative field, because leads to racial suppression, Ross in 2000, the left Arkansas go back and practical political letter reflected racial differences, start with opposition, possible to the critical appeal, working out political women, and regardless of racism, support, program, or stand with left, depending on which side we're talking about, Tom Gagnon and Justin, as a fundamental stand for the left idea, and just another way to tell everyone else to shut up. You can mark the farther now. They are a view from nowhere. Galaxy in 2005, a philosophy about the Rhapsody, and deepening a superfluid, comes to the one research, that's where it's for a reason, nowhere, the one opportunity for it for all of that brings like mentioned, race identity, what is also treated for the also chase, but whoever power, the one who gives power, becoming a little officer, and not conditional assets is giving a voting issue right now. You cannot tell us that we have to defend the capitalist system of the United States government if you say that's the most ethical in this debate. Also, the conditionality is just a voting issue in general because argument liability. You must be contradiction sustained white supremacy, not going to increase in 95. The whether or not it's good political white contradiction, put the element of destruction of white contradiction, whether it's a counter-probability, make think that one you propose social identity, different contradiction, central adapting, distorted things, when it goes framework. What is your interpretation? What is the interpretation coming out of what is the negative has defined what the economic is increasing after the economic ties, but they have not defined what economic ties is. Therefore, they do not have an interpretation of what is the don't listen to it. It's a conscientization is the best knowledge taken by the average crucial to make the meaning for a 80% renderation of the whole power and critical growth from the base necessary. We are a prerequisite and politics have been seen to right being Asian advocacy. That's what we're saying about. Now, after that, the death of resolution, maybe the resolution will continue to survive. But our conscientization is ESL. I'm losing my identity to some resolution that's helping me to forget who I used to always tell me that I simply tell us to get I should tell them that we don't need welfare, educational health. Now the framework promotes this engagement. That's methodology talking with Asians out in the cold where they're used as tool of the white supremacist. Now framework is the myth of the model minority. Asians are told diverging from the north. Well, so that I heard our ability to get jobs in the future and be accepted by the whites. That's the China evidence. Now performance debate and especially into political action. Leaders of the beautiful struggle blue also in 12. The performance function to end of a potential leaders of white supremacy. Confronting openly integrated into my functions are involved in one group. Leaders of the beautiful struggle we are to move on shape through a government policy actually helping us to develop platform regarding education, conservation, the other nations, the trademark person discussion, not after shape for the real world now.
Framework is controlled by white supremacy, protecting science, and for the framework that dominates policy now has been presented by power war, really white male, which wants to arrange which can be characterized by all sorts of opportunities and cheerful that also we share the same relationship to the social environment policy paradigm so widely accepted policy analysis to a defection stand that certain to public willfully nor political nature of all recent policy analysis grounded in the narrow really instrumental to the rationality myself and a lot of policy leads to present analysis neutral and where they're actually temporarily power now. You should know that discussion immigration is economic engagement learning tingling no day. How the legislation called immigration multivariate does whatever scripture implemented different policy analysis and that's exactly the legislation that they to larger research tradition as issues like economic engagement such an immigration resolving includes debate on OED in our person determined I should mean criticism of to justify using it and they are based on which I actually should have been more careful now the FTC to try to make a card from the one who said that we are the United States federal government doing economic engagement. The biggest now policy maker we must challenge white Dr. Cranston in 97. The structure what does all neighbor academic public discourse I have a choice to do the ideological what necessary to make what is more which is said those money to locate interaction with power white that's in both ways was terminology that to be extremely interested what to artifact is a direct public question about race and political to do actors to how race and gender discussion entered into public argument that interpretation which have a discussion of the topic. This is impact by our Trump and Nickel card where we have to discuss the narratives of the United States and how the United States came to be such as Mexico economic policy such as immigration also we will just continue to reproduce horrors of the present. That reasonability solves the world of competing interpretation makes debate in favor of the white supremacist who can just provide an interpretation that's slightly there. It is a moral hazard which is a reason why our individual performance should be performed. Now their game card is wrong. It says that democratic inclusion must have included how the framework is exclusionary. Say that our epistemic conscientization should not be included in the process of debate. We say that first a luminous argument. We are rooted in literature-based connections to the topic. We are not like Ron or say Paul Central who dances and pushes the limits of the topic. We talk about Korean immigrants who were slaves on Anakin plantation on Mexico. It's a part of Mexico history that have been kept as for the best of their diligence or their reputation of the best working. If I can do a Google search by Koreans and Mexico and then it shows up the person, then I'll take a little look at the literature base as well. Now, rhetorical imperialism limits justified. This is Solomon Braidwood's well. He just within the nurture language that's legal instrument and empire to have been always controlled empire forever, which shall remain spread. Different language construction should be a force of protecting indigenous people, controlling the education language and indigenous people, colonial foster. It says it's meant to be creating need for a new colonial process of rhetorical imperialism. It may manifest a community intellectual colonial language. It's called no allows them to colonization about rhetorical imperialism. So, in terms of the debate, you can part of that debate either recognize the plurality nature of its community or becomes extinct its value. Because the only 9 globalization of agriculture calls for the direct ritual democracy, review different multicultural community, interval to beyond space, dictator, quick stagnation, human development, for the culture, the common thing, or that poverty, interaction with the taking environment, space, we must recognize the potential for education. Well, we have accepted that this cannot be a complex exposure to switching here, informed by other cultural predictability is impossible. Everyone has a different social location and relationship topic. What you should predict for us, forces the myth of the law minority to be a planet-based debate. Only predictable those who try to assimilate into American culture. Now, their role of switching debate argument, we have internally because we are a criticism of the United States from going instead of defending hegemony, checking on both the ethnic, we are taking sides and saying that the United States federal can be good at some, and the United States federal can't be bad. And we are the only ethnic spirit, and we are the only internally to the switching debate. Instead of forcing us to defend policy, role playing is a policy maker, opposing spectator mentality. Briefly in 2008, the big resolution on the call for federal action with this argumentation expected to be grounded and no real impact on pulse making. Market pulse making.
Any of the Johnson amendments in the contributions or maybe the
Hey, Michael, can you get that? Yeah.
And you can read like the West evidence in the last part of the Austin piece of evidence, I think.
I read the first West evidence, I did not read the last
Yeah,
evidence.
then you read like a Johnson evidence instead.
Did I read Johnson evidence? I don't believe I read the Johnson evidence.
Well, I thought you read like some last piece of evidence, like after the Ross evidence.
Oh, Johnson? Yeah.
Yeah, that's just not in the speech.
Yeah. About that.
And the contributions.
Let's go to CE.
Let's talk about this first part where you read this on the meat evidence. I'm a little confused what's applicable here. How do you change the things of capitalism to where you're like advocacy?
We say that capitalism itself as a structure is not bad. The reason capitalism is a bad thing is because pale-faced, blue-eyed people have control of capitalism and use it for its exploitation.
Okay, so
Capitalism
part
is
says that like it's just that in the card it talks about how like the U.S. is like the main capitalist actor, but it also goes on to say so it's China, Argentina, and Brazil. So I don't know how it's like only the whites if you over blue lines.
We say that liberal capitalism has been created. It's not like literally blue faced. Talk about white supremacy. It's just the thing that white supremacy has reappropriated market and domination into its tool.
So how does like your Asian Conscientization,
Conscientization.
like lead to the breakdown of capitalism?
I mean, like first, Osachuba says that conscientization is the first step into making any change in the real world by naming who we are in societal location. Before we can choose capitalism, we should know who we are in the system of capitalism. Second, the negative has no alternative. Like, how do you break down this capitalism? We say that white supremacy has what made capitalism the system of domination, and we take a stance against white supremacy.
Okay, what card do you think it says that white supremacy?
The May 2009 card.
It says that like a bunch of capitalists have to be white supremacists, but where does it make the claim that the root cause of capitalism is white supremacy?
Like, you're getting to this root cause of the debate. We're going into an alternative solvency debate. Even if you're like, oh, capitalism has caused racism, capitalism has caused white supremacy, we say that this process of conscientization is meant to solve. Now, the second root cause argument is that the myth of the model minority is what perpetuates capitalism. If you listen to our 1AC, it says that these Asians are pointed to justify the free market. Free market.
Like, if capitalism justified slavery, why did they target black people? If capitalism is what justified slavery, why did they target black people?
Why did they target poor Europeans, poor English? Why did they ship them over?
I mean, like, our evidence speaks about like the whole
I mean, like, capitalism can't
it's just
explain.
cheaper for them to like go to Africa because the war looks
It's really slaves are cheap. You could just enslave the white person. Like, that's just a cheap.
It's important, we'll talk about that later. But quickly on the framework, you answered like role playing this idea of major term role playing, because we'll always reach that after like.
Oh no, that was
We really hedge that.
We said that. We said
I don't understand like why this is applicable, that we always defend hegemony.
Oh no, it wasn't about role playing. It was about switch side debate. We say that it's not switch side. Switch side debate is not affirmative and negative. Switch side debate is debating both sides of the
Yeah, but
issue.
your example is that you always defend hedge.
Yeah, that's what I-
negative.
that's what-
That personal side of me or anything.
Yeah,
No, I know. I like saying that like this doesn't happen.
It does happen. On the affirmative, you can
What?
claim that.
Yes, you
Human
can. But
rights
like, what team do you
self-rule
think always like? What team do you think always defends hegemony?
It's not an attack on the team. We say that your interpretation justifies that type of debate, which does not lead to switch side debate. We say that we are probably a better form of switch side debate because we do the opposite
Yeah,
side.
one person always has to keep stuff, doesn't necessarily get meant up.
What's ridiculous actually?
Trump people want to see anything else on to the process. So, the Trump and Nico are in front of want to see anything else.
It's called one of the flash over there in the process. Chat.
fairly good at each other.
We good?
This debate is not about whether Asian or non-Asian constitutions should be discussed, rather how we go about discussing the affirmative is a giant FYI. You do not provide a tangible mechanism for solving the harms which may be vote negative assumption. They turn debate into a book club. This debate is about method. If you win for every proves the method is bad, you can still vote negative to endorse the affirmative ideas. Voting affirmative is not tied to the resolution. We would increase visibility of the roof by being a larger disruption to big norms extra. CSB voting issue provides proofs the resolution is sufficient when it meets the atmosphere and stop the information of the RFD, which element of the extra round isn't predictable, just counterplanning of extra cheap bench means that we have to screw up the rest of our strategy, screw back to square one. Any risk of our offense outweighs the base of nuclear attachment personal belief, but only one of many states denies liberation. The effect of the evidence specifically address all their offense, at least five. The activist and the construction must always take place in the context of existing institutions due to structural inequality rather than response to set agendas. And the activists argue the political discussions always take place by means of anything discourse made this weekend money, the deliberative democratic advocate public body political skills, but one of the level state policy does not take the active program must accept the existing institution and settings deliberation for all of the deliberative is therefore committed to creation of inclusive deliberative society which is social economic structures and the exam must be outside of policy races and regional deliberative must be choose between the ideation arguments within existing deliberative society compared to what's deliberative holds where and must be on the existing structures within new college deliberative policies includes making policy decisions. There are several dialogues which these entirely broken to good and pollution discourse tends to do to fringe religious appeals and mechanisms power math rather it is a question of deep analysis discourse of the active can rights deliberative democracy. There are a good reason to think that the discussion among persons who are mentioned hegemonic issues discourse correct distorting factors is the blocking of generation straight. Now, what we're going to vote on is the fairness argument. The top evidence indicates debate is not just a site for social change exclusively. However, it indicates that we are engaging in activity for the purpose of the fun of the activity, and that only through an internal link of fairness can we actually access things like class, which are necessary to boost things like activism, which internally turn their own activists, their own arguments. Here is more evidence for to define education principle one. Functions in the last for learning rules with different games from other kinds of rules played not able to game is the cheating rules with fair deciding this key education and retention principle one and enjoyment of part of learning process and whether to know each other's desire or recursive experience bringing to a self-function more efficient than we enjoy learning deliberative realization also learn with things more motivation different first they say we know interpretation this is just flawed interpretation that debates the game and you should vote for what makes the game the best. And second a group that next to arguments here also key evidence is not about debate just about activism. The key internal activism is clash Steinberg for the evidence indicates the only way to garner clash to limit topic discussion which allows for us to have effective deliberation which can then be used to gain clash which allows for things like advocacy skills and meta proponent and level politics. All of their evidence is why we need to increase Asian American activism. The only way to do this is to increase our deliberative skills and advocacy skills in this round, which only internal to is clash talking about it one EC in the aggregate does nothing if the negative is not an effective answer to it. This is impossible in the context of their tradition, which just talks about things like Latin America, because we can never engage in all of Latin America. Rather, we can only be prepared for a predictable and robust defense of things like economic engagement with Latin America in the context of the present. I'll get to their contribution later. First, the next framework argument, the framework is engaged argument. They say the word engaged argument doesn't solve any of our arguments for no reason why that sufficiently limits out the discussion to a question of the resolution. In order for us to engage this framework is oppressive. There's no link to the argument. We want a starting point to be able to engage the framework. Don't force them to bring out their papers. Now, additionally, we internally turn this argument in order for that from their type of firm. They're excluding the negative from engaging in the discussion framework. It's always enforceable Anderson in 6 active in the debate of the crash fail in the aspect of cultural authenticity from exchange arguments and or for solving based on which there are sources that they are in favor of the 10 power so you for I was in force so they are in favor or they are in favor of the importance of procedurals by focus to our and innovation market how the procedurals be started with which market which now they say that performance is political action is only effective with good advocacy skills and political action you engage in can never translate into real social change in a world where you don't engage or you don't have the negative engagement with Shaw evidence. The alternative is critical policy analysis. It's still policy analysis. She doesn't agree with their extreme characterization of her argument. John 4. The response to talk about family critical real plus the neutrality of duty, right? Leadership, or penetration policy analysis inquiries, the connection personal, the half recognition methodology where you can connect analysis and using terms that critical policy was offered. Perform perform with action actually is the examination the ways policy functions life form with this means that where the policy subject market occurs. There's no or the immigration argument. First, immigration is not a T and that was the topic anyways. Department of State of Day class nomination visa to A's, for government officials. B is temporary visa. C or E is training university as a student. G is staff government international organization. H temporary works for A. I is representative for media. J is exchange. The N is national professional market professional there. Not topical anyway. Has to be government to government. That got in 13 government engagement for professional focus on government to government engagement. We Congress government with engagement with private engagement. Discussing the information for this is more important. They let's say resolve across policy in Louisiana House of Five. Resolution legislative non-using policy terms of resolve before the coalition's agency northern statement army officer house support the coalition formula resolve this kind of thing there. We they say we are the USFG. Their evidence does not say this. Says no history is good. Okay, it's not responsible arguments about the USFG. It's about economic engagement being a necessary starting point. They say debate is not about policy making. A yes it is, but B even if it's not about policy making, the reason that we are tasked with USFG policy analysis is the only universally accessible topic which allows for us to have broader translational skills and key to effective dialogue. A let's say counter-tradition topic discussion. A their argument is not intrinsic to Latin America. B it's not it is in the context of immigration to Mexico, but not from the U.S. Not about U.S. economic engagement. Their arguments about the U.S. being a starting point of this immigration is about a past policy. That's like running a counterfactual life possible to get ground because already happened. See, gut check their offense is based on myth of model minority. They introduced a couple cards about Korean immigration in Latin America, but really the argument is about the model minority everywhere. D doesn't resolve on switch side cleansing. Run is saying that's the gap, and then links documents and bigotry doesn't teach critical skills, decrease that skills. E is links to the ground, predictable just talking about Latin America is insufficient or key generic still on critical because this saying talking about economic engagement in this context adverse links to a number of topics in Latin America. Gut decision making. D G is not universally accessible because it's not U.S. actually policy. H is results and affirms going to say this like instead of contestable positions which is always possible to negate this reasonability. The offense proofs there are unreasonable. This framework is exclusionary. That was answered above there. I'll go to the predictability bit. Predictability is good. A is creativity. The act is flexibility, creating different plan mechanisms to construct inventions. Also, can be arguments in negative. Second is term predictability is getting negative. Creativity, low, no, literature-based engagement is negative. Creativity and writing counterplans, disadvantages and critiques. But if the act invents something outside the resolution, all of that work is going to creativity and force them to have one-sided ways when they face the together revenge. Third is persuasive argumentation, deliberation. The process brought up and pairing. The argument's best way to actually change now. The limits arguments. First, they're not connected to topic here. So they're just talking about Latin America. It's not sufficient to solve our argumentation. The only way to run the same access to limits is order to describe the stasis point, which is the resolution for actual change. And we prove that they do not engage in the stasis point, that they do not make say linguistic violence, and we don't say what they have to be. Rather, we use the resolution as a starting point for what they have to talk about. They still discuss things like Asian conscientization, which is recent. We don't limit about debate. Does not may be able to recognize the plurality community. You can do that with them on the negative. The switch side debate arguments. First of all, there is no impact. High school debates. We shouldn't form conclusive opinions about whether things can definitely be true or false. Only through deliberative skills can be actually account all points of view. True challenges will require acts of dialogue. That's more so for links that transfer trauma to the opposite in front of these are for radio voice of links that they will literally not switch to the are in touch with we do have the system authoritative voice. The are they themselves body question they folks will bring and for the same reactions, market reactions there. Role playing bad arguments are not linked. We don't say that we think we are the USFG. Rather, we think that we should answer the question of what the USFG should do, which is the reason why we can still engage in this type of action and engage in deliberative skills through the United States federal government without being the USFG.
Okay, I'll start from the top framework. The affirmative is a giant FYI. The debate is about method. What is your method?
Yes, our method of how to debate is that we should engage in
No, what is your method in this debate?
Yes, so our framework argument is a criticism of the method in which you engage the 1AC.
No, I mean, you said it's a debate about method. What is your
Yes,
method?
our method is that the negative or the affirmative has to produce a topical plan which has the stasis point of the resolution to create effective fairness.
Your callous card that says risk of bad office outweighs later in the underlying part says deliberate politics includes making policy decisions like you highlighted, then resolving conflicts of interest and principle and solving problems as they emerge on ongoing social life. Why is that?
I agree. If you take this card into account with our Steinberg and Freely
No, I'm not talking about this one right now.
No, I agree. I think that they work together.
Deliberative politics is resolving conflicts and solving problems in ongoing
And
social life.
deliberation is impossible to have without an effective starting point for us to voice.
No, I'm not talking about your starting point. I'm talking about what deliberate
Right,
politics.
I'm completely agreeing with you, and what I'm saying is that this deliberative, politics or deliberative discussion cannot occur if we do not have a starting point to effectively engage in the round.
Okay, let's talk about your fun arguments. You say that fun is key to education.
Yeah, the Gretzky evidence is pretty good.
Okay, so let's say the United States federal government murdered my entire family. Is it fun to defend them?
I think that if you want to challenge the United States federal government, then you should know what to say.
Leandra's philosophy is that she cannot defend the Cuban embargo. Is it fun for her to run a Cuban embargo?
Wait, she can't defend the Cuban embargo, and she can't defend an African
It's something that's morally against her will. Is it
Yeah,
fun?
so we're not saying you have to defend like a completely immoral action. Rather, we are saying that you should defend both sides of the argument in order to understand it so you can better defeat it. I think that you should be able to
So
understand
it's
both
not
sides.
about fun, it's just about learning your
Right, regardless of whether or not the action is moral. Let's say, hypothetical example, like me throwing a pen at like that window was immoral, yet I did it. You would have to put yourself in my shoes to understand why I did it.
So you do
before I
immoral
sit down and be able to
actions.
challenge it. What?
Okay, then never mind. Your shot card that you say you read, it says this. In the case of welfare, examining education policy as a subject to its experience, in the case of welfare reform, listening to ways in which welfare recipients actually describe their experience. How's that allowed in when you say extra topicality is a violation?
Yeah, so what's that word?
Your shot evidence flows affirming. It says that we should talk about the recipients and describe their experience. How do you
No,
allow
it says
that
we
in?
should describe the policy analysis. Of
And then in the underlying part right after, describe their
It goes
experience.
on to say how we can bring in things like extra experiences into policy
Wait, doesn't that
analysis.
make an extra topicality then?
No,
Why
I
not?
don't think so at all.
Then why do you
I think that if
it's
you have a plan which initiates a topical government action and increases economic engagement,
If that's true, why did you get your limits advantage? If you just say United States government should engage in Mexico, and then we have a whole advantage of conscientization, that
no. Okay, so conscientization, if it is tied to policy action, is not an extra topical advantage. I'm not confused. I mean, if you manage to tie that in, then I don't know how you do it.
You're right, like, I really, when there's pages on there,
What's the order?
just gonna,
Just gonna take out, you said?
Okay.
I'm gonna start on the bottom, because I agree with you, and traditional ethics and.
Sorry, can you say it a little louder?
Sorry, I'm gonna start at
It's
the
just
bottom,
easier.
the bottom of the flow, traditional ethics stuff, and then jump to the top, just make sure.
Right.
we get there. So, you all hear the, just go to the bottom of the speech, that's where I'm gonna start. Alright. All good? Good.
They say conditional ethics, there's not only frameworks, the gateway issue, the once resolved, whether or not, how we should have a fair debate, once we resolve this issue, the doing our will be capitalism means that their conditional ethics like this does apply. Also, this argument is dogmatism, that's fine, as they prevent debate from being informed that test ideas from different perspectives, and instead teach us to argue for just one, three impacts first. This works for addressing white supremacy, not questioning your assumptions, testing arguments for presents the same as submarines that colonizers had about the religious ideology, this delaying intent, focus on the variety of points, each person's legitimacy, no part in which criteria these will be important so that we do not find ourselves as chasing for the don't have the transport machines there were in perspective of our struggles for original doesn't here and let's ensure that experiences to grapple the best means out of keep it to value and with the work that's not only this on after changing. Second, this is horrible for education. We're not talking about contradictory ideology, rather flexible strategies or essential embrace successful arguments and C's arguing for unsuccessful ones. The first one is inconsistent, two and C proves reasonable demonstrates a good political strategy. Third, their version experiences politics is that anyone who disagrees or thinks from another perspective is irrelevant. This is violence to those who don't fit their totalized description is offense against their framework argument. This Brown in 96, when confessing injury becomes out of attention just to injury, which is very test of the participants want to use all things regularly confessing will also accept the individual concept regulatory choose about the idea of confess your source symbol and boy it's not just a role this would seem totally to confession strengthens the say the unified discourse of which authority, the greatest offering of the authority, the only corruption of primary rights of the modified members of status as a race order. I'm getting much more on this, but there's not another way they can win here. So here's some defenses and admirals. Switching sides means you can't say the same thing, and they're inconsistent too. They'll emphasize different parts of the act and different speeches. Top of the flow. Critique outweighs in terms of case of failure to create a radical break with capitalism enables the worst of you abusive continue multiple impacts. A, concede or impact hard, which is above all multiple reasons why capitalism is bad. A is mutual conflict, only corrupt logic, the market, mass wage job, mass extermination in the name of the profit. There's no solution for large scale escalation. B is environmental collapse, overconsumption, drive environmental degradation, makes our lives more unsustainable. C is value to life, capitalism reduces all humanity, cogs in the machine of production. D values life, we access to the impact of grand scale capitalism. There's really value life for everyone. And D's root cause slavery and rights experience created because of capitalism, even if we lose the Alzheimer's strived after the negative, prefer root cause over approximate causes and critique functions of massive all costs. That myself see the avenues that they've conceded the impacts they critique it strived after the day. And go for the first part, they read their read evidence. The read evidence is not as good as they think it says. It just talks about how capitalists happen to be white supremacists. They have not read a single piece of this evidence does not go on to claim this is resolving racism. We resolve capitalism, which means they cannot solve any impacts via the affirmative capitalism, the root cause of racism. So this have captured slaves from the millennium like the Romans and Spartans, livers, and who are racially based, even African parents captured other Africans for the American slave trade. The conflict the U.S. slave trades were not because of the rights but for labor. And our evidence assumes that racism first class and wealth accumulation drove the shift to African labor racism, and the only limiting factor of proponents of the evidence shows is ancient or cross-sex question that Zesher 97 had no factors within the racism arguments which African labor slavery was not part of the racism or other slavery with the racism. Your article showed virtually unanimity in the property of economics and accounting or the term towards like labor, non-economic factors, and all these limiting perimeter Europeans were forced to regard Africans as Thomas and local dominant Americans in the slave trade. They were all dominating military and dominating in terms of massive person and then vulnerable to local diseases, and their methodologies highlighting racism as the root cause of labor, only further commodification of human relations. That makes things worse. That's why San Juan Jr. in 2005 studied racism practice in the institutions of work with the online combination structure of capital accumulation class can only prepare an abstract benefit to the racism discourse of power. That would refer to continued commodification of human relations without framing with the capital. We cannot correct racism, mark the card of racism, go to the permutation, extend our one evidence here. This is the ancient American studies ignore capitalism means that ancient Constitution fail. Break down capitalism. That's our first like our next is our Hennessy evidence. It talks about how the AF tries to solve the intersection of race and the AF causes political divisions, fight for attention and resources among different groups, and that's our Hennessy card, but they only focus on one group, and this still happens while it's full difference to the model minority. It breaks up like capitalism, that means they can never card. This is historically proven by the 1990s argument and the infighting that's Lark and the left. Many actors saw the able-bodied studying the generals around believing that people who were disabled had different separate interests from those who were not meanwhile black. It's a moment when the university by fellow disabled actors, disability movement, during the period of defeats for the working class here in the city, EMS and the working class assembly, unites shortly across this year with more fundamental change with metal and politics. The idea of crucially come to dominate those classes. Now next is the alternative fails, but their also evidence was remarkable before the war and the two issues. You should probably give it a little away. Also, their own one to see evidence provides. Also, he talks about how the Southeast Asians, the reason why they don't have any place inside is because things like poverty, capitalism would break down things like poverty would make all, and it would also suffer the minorities because that means it's only based on class and we become the proletariat because we're no longer focused on race. Now, finally, they read this Yancey evidence, but the Yancey evidence is not applicable. It is not applicable in the context of speaking forever, which is not the alternative. The alternative is just only a radical break for capitalism, which makes all part of the proletariat. So they're speaking for others. This to the alternative is not applicable.
No, I'm gonna take some prep time.
Yeah, we're taking it.
Hold on.
This one.
Oh, yeah. I'm good.
That's 55 cents. You get that level. At 55 cents per second you use 8, 6, 35.
Yeah, it's in a Dropbox flash code. I'm gonna show you.
1AR?
Yeah.
What's it for George? You, any early faders from you?
Yeah, you got to go, Jim.
I was so surprised.
You know, shot.
I was like it was guaranteed.
Yeah, I tell you, you can't talk to me until he has a school association.
Did you have like anywhere else?
No, he just, that's it.
How many apps did he send in after that?
Like 13.
Jesus.
He probably like,
Every day.
yeah, I did like 5 of them.
He's not a fan. Sure, UNC wasn't on his short list.
You know, schools he probably more nice.
Johns Hopkins, Pittsburgh, Stony Brook, Northwestern, I think. Rice. Actually, don't know how many ones this is like. It's just like 1 week during,
No, it was 13.
it's like 1 week during winter break, it was just like isolated, and it was just had that essays. Really nothing.
Yeah, that's
I'm reading this, I'm reading my history knowledge. I just, my goal is to like write like 3 essays. I think I wrote one big essay, I wrote a work essay. I think I wrote 5 essays. No, 6. I forgot about the Western one.
my schools are really obnoxious. Oh, that's really
You just don't have to put me on. Yeah, I wrote 6 essays.
the worst is that.
What was it on?
They were like 5.
Have we heard from them yet?
No. I looked at it after here, right? It's all users.
How much more time do you want?
Use 55 seconds with 6:35 left.
case cap framework. Anyone have it? Okay. The role of legislature, whoever has the best methodology to liberate press, we performally do this because we break down the myth of the environment, because we refuse to conform to the traditional world. They are not the impact of psychological violence against Asian Americans, against Asian American oppression is always left on the rug because they're always assumed to be these minorities, and also the myth of the environment because of oppression of other groups. Southeast Asian have the biggest welfare rate, they're excluded from society and never conform to the These are psychological impacts that are not addressed within the cause made, not what the capitalism made. The reason why we see all the impacts made was because you guys dropped the argument that the United States federal government is hella capitalism, which is the reason why all these impacts are this type of framework made too. So we're going to win that is absolutely no way because he does a crappy job on the link debate. He says that our method is bad, except that the methodology debate is good because conscientization is the best methodology to break down capitalism. Learning it, process of clarification, learning how we exist in the world is how we can break down capitalism. His argument about the Asian study is completely false because he did not answer the question, what is neoliberalism? I'll answer that for you right now. Neoliberalism is the idea that Asians are vindicated free market. The idea that Asians are this bottom liner that always follow the free market. Asian American science will break down this, and that is based on the bottom liner myth. We break that down, which is the reason why we don't link to this argument. Also, the second argument is based on class position. This is not a concept of permutation because it says that people only flow in class side A. The reason the permutation will get both class and race side A. It's an intersection of things, which is the reason why the permutation is the best to solve an argument. Though Ross says also this is not an active permutation. Ross says that when you only do class focus, that lets white people control the movement and tell everyone else to shut up, which causes the racial coalition frag. The reason why it doesn't. The root of nowhere is also a significant difference in permutation because you do not have a personal experience with capitalism. You do not have the experience that people in the proletariat face, which is the reason why we call it a platform culture. Not a contradiction argument. This contradiction argument was just say you cannot contradict when you're speaking within a frame English and cause white supremacy, which was the impact that the job. Since I theoretical violation was something one based on the speech performance. He says that there's no link. Yes, there's a link because the frame to United States is capitalism. The contradiction is argument different round solve your impact. You don't just interact every position, which is the reason why we're not identity policing. He says that he's keeping that flex. Keeping that flex is still a race war that flex because the white knock you out and increase emphasis and white trying to use it. The brown color we don't link is because you contradict yourself. We're not saying that you disagree with us and that's the reason we're performing you. We're just saying that your own advocacy and the type of ethics that you introduce in the debate is bad, which is the reason why that's the not with the framework violation, the overview, the question of the framework violation, plus best interpretation for the debate. The affirmative interpretation is more inclusive. It's like a interpretation. You can still have a role playing a thing, except we should say that you should have a different methodology, which is the reason why the education this will outweigh a small risk of classroom violence. He says that as does have a method. Have you not listened to the case debate that you draw once again? We have a method. It's conservation. The extra key arguments are limited arguments and education arguments impact to this argument. The card, the philosophy card evidence specifically says that we need to solve problems in social life and also we need to resolve things that are not anecdotal, which is that debate is not something that Paul is making, which is that this card is factual observation. He says, fine, I'm going to impact the share of this fund this act because it is fun for you. It's not for people who are excluded from the debate in this act, who are dangerous, violent police, which in this act, it's not for the people who their parents or relatives are shot by the federal government and they have to escalate the fact you are a form of this debate, which is the reason why we lead to a better focus on education, not fun, not a lifeline problem. The economic gains arguments were not extended within the middle. What is the economic gains? What is the economic ties? These are all questions unanswered by the class arguments are impacted by education arguments because you classify the post arguments here. The post argument says that we can still get the average skills without having a state support because performance debaters from the elements is the same thing. The reason why we still look at education, deliberation arguments, deliberation for the other perspective not including your type of deliberation, which is the reason why I get interpretation is more inclusive and because we're also not the death of the rest of the debate. We still get your role playing and your switch type arguments because our interpretation still includes those same framework is oppression. They have not to argue that framework is a myth only modern, which is the reason why we conform to traditional law. The reason why it's bad. Now finally, the arguments are about methodology. Your own evidence says that extra team needs to do we still want to do those critical policy analysis, which is the reason why you cannot gain office on this card anyway. Now the interpretation reverse that irrigation is economic gains and golf clubs violation is you have to ask a question, who's the United States government? You have to have the Trump University that we are the United States government. That's a better forward interpretation because we can change the history and be earlier, which is the reason why the economic gain is still between us. If we integrate and interrogate immigration policy, you also drop the should definition, which is the reason why we do not explode the limits of the topic. The should fall to debate. Not debate should be to challenge white supremacy. Our counterfeit discussion topics very form because the examining construction nation quickly understand the United States fall. Now finally limits are met. When we impose conditions on knowledge production, that causes total imperialism. That's there has two impacts. First, it causes colonization of the back, because only manufactured on the positive. For instance, engaging in discussion of methodological literary criticism. That means that these discussions are never brought to light unless rights representative forms of debate convene. That's just the literal right of it. Finally, you have to concede the obvious solid evidence. It causes the extinction of debate. The inability to let debaters go to move beyond the states of mind causes state education, which is also an exclusionary norm to kill debate. This is interlinked to the debate, good artists, but not a problem. Now finally, you have also dropped a piece of evidence saying that to block democratic inclusion, your own piece of evidence says that we need democratic inclusion to make debates viable. The reason why all your states at this point arguments are stalled by the fact that within the literature base and to some sort of class also predictability is impossible because people have different social locations, which you don't know what's predictable for us. We saw different type of debate arguments better because we lead to multi-sided debate. If one person always has to benefit from you are not going to take a stance that we have a methodology. These are the types of exclusionary. Finally, the real brief blinking cut role things matter. We devote self-government policy. We ethically line up with the colonial legacy of the federal government. That causes policymakers that produce an 18 oppression because of callous policymaking. I'll finish the brief card. To answer the rights of the forces has to these world level linking debate stimulation to terms of the real world participation. When we finally call for government policy, we're not being colonial slicing.
How is that clear now with legacy?
Where?
Legacy.
Lexi?
Yes.
325.
framework and then think tank.
Okay.
That would be smaller than framework.
On framework? Okay.
Our interpretation that only an advocacy that goes through the interpretation can be a portal into effective change and deliberative skills. Our interpretation is necessary to increase the amount of clash that's increased by having a negative engagement with the topic and world of the affirmative allows or any affirmative that's predicated on Latin America. All of their evidence may talk about, or some of their evidence may talk about Latin America in the context of immigration. However, the thesis of their argument is all predicated on the myth of the model minority in the abstract, not in the context of Latin America. The proof it is in there no link to the CAPK. The argument that we say they must defend the USFG and that's capitalist is a contradiction is not true. Rather, we are running a critique of economic engagement. They are no linking out a said critique of economic engagement by saying that they are not all proofs or all proofs the thesis of a violation of the framework debate. If we win a risk of our fairness arguments that outweighs the thesis of this debate should come down to the question of whether or not debate is a game. Yes, they can have skills to translate to larger social change. However, at its core, debate is fundamentally a game. The activity only has merit if everybody wants to engage in it, which means that in a world where you can run to a small laughs which have almost nothing to do with the topic, maybe that's a good thing to talk about. However, it is not what should be talked about in these rounds. The question of what should be talked about is defined by the resolution of Steinberg and freely evidence indicates that only this limited topic discussion can provide for equitable ground and clash. That they say that there's the best information reaction. I'll get to that later. The first argument is that it's not about for people who are excluded to defending an immoral action. Switch side is still useful in providing these social takes. They're talking about. We've read a couple cards in this debate as to why learning about another point of view can actually allow you to decrease dogmatism and increase inclusionary skills, which turns all of their arguments allows for things like integration into politics to multiple different minorities and stops things like racial oppression because people can look at both sides of the debate and understand what they need to do in order to resolve the performance debate. These advocacy skills argument A, this evidence is pretty biased, talking about a person who's yearning for performance rate. B, even if it is true that they engage in things like college and later advocacy, those skills are not as effective in a world where there's not a sufficient clash in order for us to increase our argumentative skills. The only way for them to increase the burden of their educational merit is through a debate with an equitable ground. This their type of firm can provide things like a normative statement about Latin America, or a normative statement about anything in general, which causes us to not be able to engage them and force the defense of their plan. Their interpretation it may be more inclusive, but it doesn't provide a stable locus or a negative engagement, which means not predictable excluder inclusivity, which independently guts our ability to engage, which in turn turns the inclusivity arguments because means negative is not included in the discussion, the dialogue skills that we perform more important to the larger context of what debate should be than what they're talking about. Even if what they're talking about is important, it can be tied to policy proposals. That's not extra T. Rather, it forces them to have a stable locus, a starting point for their ground, and then discuss things based on that policy implementation. Even if Asian conscientization is about immigration, in their instance, does not have to be solely precluded to this. In fact, they could talk about specifically the way in which Latin America reproduces the oppression to current economic engagement and how they increase that economic engagement in a more beneficial manner to resolve this. The Shaw argument is then solved by all of our evidence, which indicates that she still advocates for a starting point policy analysis, which is why we should engage in that policy analysis in the first place. And additionally, they say who is the USFG? However, that precludes our argument about universal accessibility of the debate. The only USFG policy can allow for us to engage in this. Now, the should question is not what we're going for, rather it's economic engagement, which is proven by the CAPK. The limit's bad for each person, the colonization of my argument. They say we stop their methodology of oppression. However, the criticism of the negative can still increase the amount of looking at methodological skills of oppression. It does not result in the extinction of debate. This argument is flawed. We still let debate grow just in different ways through a vertical rather than linear form of a spread of new affirmatives which allows us to delve into the topic itself. People can still run things like Machiavelli's actors have to provide a stable locus of increasing said negative engagement. They say we are within the literature. There are plenty of things within literature in Latin America, not specific to U.S. increases in economic engagement. They conceded that their affirmative increases Korean immigration to Mexico. Not the same thing. The predictability of arguments not impossible. It's a question of your starting point. The switch side debate arguments they don't solve. It's not a question of just reading a hedge impact on both sides, but rather the internal link chains that you read going one way or another way. There's no reason why they have to stop reading their switch side debate arguments when they go into the negative and still read a CAPK, which engaged in the same structures of repression, which still leads to their argument. That's proven by the link turns they have run. The role-playing bad argument is not applicable. The read the evidence is not assuming the fact that we don't say you have to quote think yourself to be the USFG. Rather, you have to think yourself to say whether the USFG should engage in action as a starting point for deliberative skills. This results in things like deliberative or decision making, which allows for you to have better advocacy skills later in life, which turns our arguments because it makes later education more possible. The conditional ethics arguments. First of all, we are not saying that you have to. Sorry, here's the key here.
yes, we are saying we can critique capitalism and say if you use FG, we should have that debate about the cap day, because that is good. That was all I was trying to debate.
7:05.
Oh, no.
No, you have 6:35.
That's right.
What are your names?
Sorry?
Your names?
I'm Anshuman.
Say that again?
Anshuman?
Say that again.
Anshuman?
Anshman? That is it. Close enough?
Eric.
That's not correct. Limited policy.
Case 15.
Please, frame. One moment.
Ready?
No. Yes.
The two in our hands once again blockade who will sign a ballot because the process of conscientization is still a good thing and it's able to solve for the impact of the framework violation versus the role of the ballot. It's a competing methodology to liberate and oppress group. The two in our hands that indicate what your ballot means in this debate, so you cannot vote for first impact psychological violence, Asian versus vaccine legitimate swept on the road. This perpetuating things like AL welfare policy that excludes Asian and educational program. We say that Asians have already succeeded. The second impact is one minority, which justify the oppression of other minority because they're put to the Asian. Be like, look, why can't you be as hardworking as this? It's a proof that the free market is working. It just proves that white supremacy is not legitimate, not going to critique. He has conceded the theory violation. All he has said is that we can critique capitalism. However, we have said that the United States federal government is a capitalist system and that we are not really inclined to do a capitalist system across the line. All of you wanted our great impact analysis that he did about how capitalism called destroy values like cost environmental class, cost nuclear something, and is the root cause of all struggles like in the United States federal government is a capitalist system. We should not even be role playing because even if we do a top-level firm where we economically get Mexico, those policies will always be capitalist, always cause it destruction of lives in Mexico, Venezuela, or Cuba. It's probably still not going to be a good thing. This also say white supremacy not going to present arguments in the case that when you contradict having fluid identity, that's what white supremacy uses to dodge the bullet because they can go from one idea to another. Say yeah, you have to defend the state and then say it's capitalism. One point which means that they are never reliant, they never have a stable locus of point. This also turns state's argument because then we cannot engage them in looking at just revise their internal arguments all on framework. I go on the framework proper. I'll do some framework. The only offense to the back pass in this is the clash and limit stuff. However, we will win that our education impacts our way to little loss of fairness and that we have internally turned all your impacts versus the interpretation debate. You do not know what the interpretation is coming out of this order. Are we allowed to do a policy and then talk about conscientization? Are we able to just do conscientization but tell the U.S. federal government policy? Do we have to be U.S. federal government? What is extra topical? Two have not resolved any of these questions. And it just means that their interpretation does not solve for anything. One, if their interpretation is that we must have U.S. FD policy, then that links all to our education and epistemology dissent. Two, if their interpretation allows for the process of conscientization, then it still links to the limits argument because just because you say that United States government should do some other thing doesn't limit out the infinite possibility of such a conscientization based on sex and patriarchy, which means that the limit argument has no internal link in it. Now their interpretation is not as limiting as you say, it's a discussion of topic rooted in the literature. There's only a limited literature based about how the USFT engages Mexico. It's just as big as the literature about how US economic hegemony, but however the interpretation solves for the role-playing dissent because it's a permutation of both interpretation. You're allowed to do role-playing and defend the United States if you want, but you can also talk about a critical consciousness and solve for our epistemology and education argument, solve for the switch side debate argument because you are still allowed to defend the policy and defend the United States federal government. However, we just should be more inclusive about these education and not the impact debate versus their deliberate their own tiny classical apart from the two entities said that deliberate politics includes solving social problems, which the one entity is able to do even if we get more deliberate skills because the deliberation skills we get from their form of debate is only about the United States federal government. That's it. Impact on social evidence, which means that the positive paradigm that we always talk about is just like a return white supremacist, or he says that Shaw is full negative. Howard Shaw says that yes, you can start from a US foreign policy, but you have to talk about the experience and including with that, which their interpretation does not allow, which means it still include the education, the affirmative gives. Now the second impact is this attitude skills argument. This is solved by the Polson card, which they have conceded. The Polson card gives only empirical examples such as the leaders of a beautiful struggle, which is an active group in Baltimore, which solves for there's a job where disparities, incarceration in Baltimore. These are made up of past performance debaters such as David Jackson, who had a debate in this style of debate and made real change. This is the only